Hey squad, welcome back. Now today I'm starting a new series doing a three-way head-to-head between Logic Pro X, Pro Tools and Ableton Live 10. Now a few months ago I did a short series on Logic Pro X versus Ableton Live 9. However, I've now got access to Live 10 as well as Pro Tools, so I'm going to be doing some comparisons between the three platforms, and I really do hope you find it interesting and useful. Now before I tell you about today's topic, I just want to remind you that I've got some music out at the moment and I'll be releasing tracks every few weeks or so please do remember to check out my DuceBeats.com website. There's a link in the description where you can check out the music, whether on Spotify, Apple Music or wherever else you buy or stream your music. I really do appreciate the support so far, and I look forward to you guys supporting me along my musical journey. Okay, so in today's video, I'm showing you some really simple tricks on how to give additional control to your kick drum and bass in your productions using some distortion and saturation techniques, as well as sidechain compression. Now, I'm going to demonstrate this across all three platforms, and hopefully this will resonate with you, whichever one you're working in. Now, I produced this track in Logic Pro X and then exported the stems so I could use the same sounds across all three DAWs. The mixes are very, very basic. I haven't really gone in at all and done much in the way of processing, so they're going to sound a bit different in each platform, because this demonstration is not about mixing, it's about adding those simple techniques to allow your bass to cut through, as well as adding additional sparkle and edge to your mixes. Anyway, I do hope you find the tutorial useful, so let's get into it. Okay, so we're starting off in Logic Pro X, and you can see the full layout of the tracks. These are all stems taken from the production, and I've just got them all in track stacks. So let's just shut those down a little bit, create a bit of space on the screen. So let me just give you a bit of a taste of the track, and then we'll get into exactly what we're doing. Okay, so that's the track so far. As you can tell, it kind of follows the Afrobeat, Afro-pop style that's really happening at the moment. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to touch on is show you how to make sure that your kick and your bass are working well together. So this is the kick drum right here. Let's go into this, stack and solo the kick. Here we go. Okay, and now we're bringing in the bass line. Okay, so we're going to do this by a process called sidechain compression, which we've touched on before, but it's very appropriate in a track such as this. So we go to the bass track and we insert a compressor, which I've already got inserted. So what we're going to do is tell Logic to reduce the volume of the bass line a touch whenever the kick drum is hit. We come up here to sidechain and we look for the kick drum, which is this one, audio 15, and let's just play that back and let's see the movement. As you can see, whenever the kick is hit, the compressor kicks in, and we're getting about 6 decibels of gain reduction on the bass whenever the kick hits. You can increase that by adjusting the threshold. Okay, so whenever the kick drum hits, the bass sound ducks down a bit by 6 dB just to allow the kick to cut through. Now that's the first thing with the bass. The other thing we're going to do with the bass is give it a bit more edge. We're going to give it a bit of distortion, and we're going to pull up this distortion device right here in Logic, and let's play back the bass, and then let's bring this in and you can hear what's actually happening. Now let's hear it in context with the track. So you can drive this as hard as you like or go as subtle as you like. I've pushed it quite a bit with these settings. Let's take the drive down a bit and play again. So this distortion device, what it's actually doing is adding more harmonics to the bass sound or bass tone, and that allows your bass line to cut through, especially on mobile devices like phones and iPads, laptops and that sort of thing. The depth is still there, very much so, but you're adding more frequencies, more harmonics, so that those very low subtones, which would often get lost on your mobile device, the higher harmonics will come through and you'll be able to hear the bass line. Okay, so I'm going to leave this probably around about 5 dB of drive. Okay, so now let's have a quick listen to this section with that adjustment. That's it switched off. Okay, so those are the baseline adjustments that we're making, and I'll show you how to do the same thing in Pro Tools and in Live in just a while. Okay, so I'm going to show you another trick you can use to add extra harmonics and brightness and edge to your overall mix. And it's a really simple technique, and this is how I do it. First of all, as you can see down here, I've got this new track called Para Spice. Okay, all I've done is bounce down this entire track. Let me mute all of these. Okay, so this is just a bounce of the entire mix. Okay, and I've just set it up onto an individual audio track, and what I've done is insert a compressor, and in Logic I'm using this one right here, and I'm going to add some distortion to it. As you can see, I've added the hard distortion. I'm setting the threshold quite low, so the audio is being compressed pretty much all the time. Let's have a listen to that. Okay, so now the next thing I'm adding is a distortion unit as well. So let's pull this up. This time I'm using the distortion 2, and have a listen to this now. We're going to be adding those additional harmonics to the production. Now in isolation it doesn't sound great, it sounds all bitty and broken up, and what I've done here is used one of the presets, and then I've adjusted the tone and the drive, I think it was, to suit what I'm looking for. It will all make sense in a minute. Let me just show you what's actually going on. Okay, so right here is I've just got 2 EQs plugged in. I haven't adjusted any of the parameters. This is just to use the spectrum analyzer to show what's happening before the plugins, and this one is after. And look at the change in the EQ curve and the harmonics that are added up here. Let's play this back. Okay, so it's pretty much identical now. as I bring the bits in. Okay, and now. Okay, so we're not just talking about adding more volume by having an additional copy of the production. We're adding extra parts, extra harmonic elements to the production. Now let's see how it all fits together. I'm going to mute the harmonics track, let's call it harmonics. Okay, and let's play back, and then we'll bring it in and out to hear the difference. It's a very subtle change. This adds extra width and depth to the production, and when you mute the track you actually hear something disappears. So that's a nice little trick you can do just to add that additional edge and width to your production. I've just added ozone onto the master bus right here just for additional volume, and that's it. Now this is a very rough mix just for demonstration purposes, and I'll be spending more time on getting it really tight, but for now this is enough to demonstrate what I want to show you. The other thing I've got on the drums incidentally is Alloy 2, which I really love using, so I always use Alloy on my drum tracks, especially when I'm doing music such as this. Now it's time for me to demonstrate the same thing real quick in Pro Tools and in Ableton Live 10, so you can try these techniques out yourself and see how it works for you. Okay, so it's time now to demonstrate the same process in Pro Tools. The stems are exactly the same. The mix again is very rough, so the overall sound of the production or the overall mix is going to sound quite different compared to what you just heard in Logic. And the same will happen in Live, because I'm not spending much time in terms of mixing it. This is just going to be a general, very basic overview. Anyways, again, starting with the bass. So first of all, let's hear what we've got. Okay, so starting with the bass again, let's go to the bass channel. The first thing I'm going to do is add that distortion and saturation to the bass. So I'm using this Sans amp, and this is one of the stock Pro Tools plugins, which you'll find under Harmonic. There we go. Okay, let's play that back and then switch the bypass on and off. Now that's just adding some nice subtle distortion to the bass. There are loads of presets that you can mess around with. There's a lot of parameters that you can adjust here, but for me that's enough. I'm now going to switch in the compressor. Okay, so just like in Logic, I'm going to apply some sidechain compression to the bass channel, to the bass line. So pull up a compressor. Right here I've got one of the stock Pro Tools compressors. I've got a setting of a ratio of 8:1. The attack is fairly quick and a bit of a slow release. The compressor is going to be looking for an input in order to key or trigger the sidechain. So I'm going to set this to bus 1, and then I'm going to go to the kick drum channel and I'm going to create a send bus 1, send it there, and now whenever the kick drum triggers, it goes through to bus 1. Bus 1 then triggers the compressor, which then ducks down the bass. Okay, that's how the chain works. Let's play that back and let's see it in motion. that's it really. Whenever the kick drum hits, this compressor is on the bass channel, so you just remember that. So the kick is hitting, it's a copy of the kick signal is going through to the bus 1. Bus 1 is then going into the key input on the compressor. Whenever the bass and the kick are sounded at the same time, the bass is reduced by, I think it's, let's have a look, see how much. Around about 3 decibels of gain reduction is taking place. Okay, so on my master stereo channel, I've got this really handy plugin, and it's called the Beat Skills Max 1. It's a maximizer plugin, and it actually does a great job. It brings up the overall perceived loudness of your track. Now, let me just bypass it, and you can hear the mix without this plugin. Okay, that's bypassed, and now on. So it's a really powerful tool. It's fantastic, and it's free, and it comes as part of Pro Tools. You do have to go onto the Beat Skills website to register it, but it is a free to use plugin. It's very similar to the Waves L3 Ultra Maximizer, which I generally use on most of my mixes, as well as the Isotope Ozone Maximizer, but it's a great little tool. Okay, so that's that for now. What we're going to do, we're going to jump over to Ableton Live 10 and see how this whole process is done there. Okay, so once again, this is exactly the same track, same stems as I've shown you in Logic Pro X as well as in Pro Tools, and now we're in Ableton Live 10, and let me give you a quick taste. Okay, that's cool. Again, a very, very basic mix, not really much going on. So like I said, I've got all of the tracks all lined up here, and we're currently working in arrangement view. Okay, so the first thing I want to show you is on the master bus. Let's go over to stereo out. What I've got here is one of Ableton's stock plugins. This here is the limiter, and I'm using the upper ceiling preset and adjusted the gain to suit. Let me bypass this so you can hear the difference. And now I'm switching it on and off. Okay, so just by using this very simple limiter plugin, you can adjust the overall output level of your track without clipping. It's limiting, and you can see the amount of gain reduction right here. Let's play that back again. So it's just catching those peaks, probably about 2 or 3 dB of gain reduction, and you're not really hearing any pumping or anything, but it's nice and tight and loud. So that's the sort of thing you can apply to your master output. So the other thing that we touched on was the kick and the bass. So our bass channel is right here. So on the bass channel, I've got a compressor, and I've also got a saturator, and the saturator is to enhance the bass by adding those additional frequencies, those additional harmonics that will kind of help your bass to cut through. But at the same time, we need to use that sidechain compression. So let's set that up. So over here on a compressor, I'm going to switch the compressor on, and right here you can see it says sidechain. Make sure you switch that on, and down here we're going to look for the audio source, and that's going to be our kick drum. So you click here and you choose kick, and then I've got some parameters set up here. Let's actually solo this. Let's loop around the bass line. So as you can see, the gain reduction is taking place whenever the kick drum hits. Let's go back to where there is no bass playing. Let's play it again. As you can see, there's movement in the compressor, although the bass is not playing. Now that's because the input signal is coming in from the kick drum, which is hitting up here. Let's actually bring the kick in. So I can add a bit more ratio, so we get a bit more change in the bass. So that's our kick drum cutting open the bass line to create space for itself for whenever it hits. The other thing I've got on here, as I said, is saturator. So let's put that on and let's have a listen to see what this is doing. In fact, let's play without and then with. Okay, and now with. Okay, and now in context. Yeah, that's really cool. Again, adding those extra harmonics which will help the bass line pop when it comes to mobile devices, mobile phones, and so on. On the saturator, I've just gone for a preset, what have I used? Warm up lows, and I've just done a bit of adjusting here. That's they're very, very simple adjustments that you can make. Just have a listen, adjust them to what works for you, okay? And now the final thing I want to touch on is this track right here, which is kind of our parallel saturation track for the overall song. So this here is the bounce of the overall mix, and let's go back, and on the actual channel strip we've got the plugins right here. Let's solo it and have a listen to what we got. Okay, nice and low. Let's bring in the overdrive. Let's drive it a little bit more. Bypass. Okay, now the other thing I've got, which is quite handy, is a brick wall limiter. You'll find it under compressors, and that's it right there, the brick wall. And let's switch that on and see what we've got. Again, we're still soloing just the parallel track. Okay, now let's switch off the solo, mute the track and play the overall song, and then bring it in and out and see what we've got. Okay, so it's not just about volume, it's about texture, it's about changing the character of the overall mix of the song. So there are a few processes you can experiment with across those three platforms. Okay, we've got there. Hopefully you found the tutorial useful. Now do remember to drop me a line in the comment section. I always appreciate your feedback. You may well agree with my technique or not. It's always great to hear from you because I'm learning every day. And make sure you stay tuned because I'm going to be doing more three-way head-to-heads between these DAWs. I'll also be doing my other usual techniques on specific things, primarily in Logic Pro X because that's the platform I generally work in, but there's a lot more to come. And do remember to continue to give me that great support on my musical journey by checking out my music. The links are in the description, and my social media profile links will also be available on screen and in the description. It's great having you back, and remember to switch on your notification so you can find out when my next video drops, and I look forward to catching up with you real soon. I'm Dr. Duce. Peace.